Welcome to the Graceful Exit podcast. I'm Kimberly Hertz, founder of the Graceful Exit, created to educate, empower, and support women as they navigate divorce. Beginning with us, we are putting a stop to the divorce stigma through meaningful conversations about the emotional and endearing experience divorce often brings. My hope is that you'll follow along on this journey and join our community of women navigating divorce with grace. All right. Hello, everybody. Today, I have the opportunity to meet with Sheila-Marie Finkelstein, who is one of our estate planning attorneys with the Graceful Exit, and she has such a wealth of information that she's going to share with the community today. So, Sheila-Marie, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes. Good morning. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Sheila-Marie Finkelstein. I'm a certified specialist in estate planning, trust, and probate law here in the state of California. I'm also an LLM in taxation and a VA accredited attorney. So what that means is I am in the very highest niche of professional and education in terms of estates and trusts. And I'm here to help our wonderful Graceful Exit women.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit, how did you get into estate planning?
Absolutely. So my firm name is AHAVA Law. And I started it after I became a mother. AHAVA is Hebrew for love. Anyone who's doing estate planning or administration is doing it because they love someone or because they don't love someone. And I got started in this, actually. I clerked with the Air Force JAG. And when I was doing that, there were a number of groups that were about to deploy. And in a 2-week period, I went from never having even taken trust in estates in law school to preparing 30 complete estate plans in 2 weeks, and just saw how incredibly important estate planning is for everyone. Most of us think that estate planning is just for people with high net worth or lots of assets. But the truth of the matter is that estate planning is planning for life. And I want to make sure that we're planning for life with your love. So what does that mean to you? Might be different than what it means for someone else. But I want to make sure that we get the plan in place that is going to protect what you care about.
Got it. So can you briefly explain what estate planning is, what the difference between a will and estate? And then I know you specialize in probate too. So what are all those differences? So you can explain that to our community.
Yes, absolutely. Estate plan is a series of documents that protect different aspects of your life and provide a treasure map, plan of action. And I like to think of a trust as a treasure chest. So you create a trust and you put everything you want to protect inside of that trust. And you're the only one who has the key to that treasure chest trust. And then you leave the treasure map that says who gets the key next and how those things get distributed in the case of your incapacity and at the time of your passing, whether you want to give everything outright to everyone, whether you want to make sure someone doesn't get something, whether you want to make sure your kids get it, but not until they've graduated college, whatever types of plans of protections you want to put into place, that all goes into a trust. The next document is a will. And a lot of people only think of a will because you see it in the movies. There's Knives Out and all these different movies that talk about the reading of the will, and it's very, very exciting. But in reality, a will does not provide nearly as much protections as a trust does. And a will is more appropriate for naming guardians of minor children, but not necessarily for the protection and distribution of your assets, because you want to keep those personal, private, confidential. You don't want it to be in a public record. You don't want it to be in an extensive process. So in an ideal estate plan, you're going to have both a trust, which is the main course, the big protection treasure chest, and a will. And the will is going to say, this is who I want to take care of my minor children. And if I forgot to put anything into my trust, I put it in my trust now. Because the bottom line is, where there's a will, there's a probate. And a probate is basically a lawsuit that you file against yourself for the benefit of your creditors. So if we're doing proper planning, we are avoiding going to court as much as possible. The other elements of an estate plan are going to deal with incapacity issues. So This is very, very important, especially when you have minor children or when you're going through the process of separation and divorce. You're going to have a document called a durable power of attorney for finances. So this is the document that allows someone to act on your behalf with regards to financial matters, paying bills, dealing with the IRS, anything to do with banking or retirement accounts, etc. This is what says who can act on your behalf if you're not available. Now, for all of my Air Force members, when we were doing that, it's because they were getting deployed. So they needed their spouses back home to be able to handle the bill paying and whatnot. For our clients here at the Graceful Exit, you are either in the process of exiting or have just exited, and you want to make sure that it is not your ex-spouse who's making the decisions on your finances. Same thing with the Advanced Healthcare Directive. That's a document where you outline who can help make your medical decisions if you're unable to do it yourself. And it's very important in that document that you list someone that you trust and respect, someone who is cognizant and aware of your spiritual and religious beliefs, and someone who's going to be able to make those hard decisions in a very rapid manner and act in your best interest. Again, with our clients, that might not be your spouse. It might not be your ex-spouse. Maybe it's your sister or your best friend or someone else.
So do you encourage women to come to you prior to divorce, filing divorce, or post-divorce? And what would be the reasons either way?
So by the time you need these documents in the estate plan, it is too late to do them. So you want to do it right now, today. I would recommend that even if you haven't divorced yet, if you're still married and maybe just unhappily married or questioning, that's the perfect time to get started, because we can create a plan for you. And within the plan, clearly delineate marital property and separate property, which can come very useful and helpful further down the line when you do get to the stages of separation and divorce, because then you've got a legal document that shows that, hey, when things were good, we had already said this was my separate property and so on and so forth.
Got it.
Most importantly, I recommend doing a bare minimum estate planning prior to filing for divorce, because in the state of California, as soon as you file that paperwork for divorce, requesting divorce, there's something called ATROS, automatic temporary restraining orders that go into effect. And that means that you can't change any bank accounts, you can't change any titles, you cannot do anything with any of your assets until the lawyers come in and divide everything up. And we all know how contentious that can be.
Right.
So if you come to me prior to filing, even if you know this relationship is just not going to work out and I need to find a way out, we can do estate planning in advance of that to make sure that the things that are your separate property, maybe gift from your parents, or maybe you inherited a house from your grandma, whatnot, we can make sure all of that is protected in a separate property trust for you. And we can also establish the individuals that you trust to make your financial and medical decisions on your behalf if you're unable to do so. This is really important. God forbid you're in a car accident and you can't make decisions. Even worse, you pass away and maybe there's a lawsuit pending. There's all sorts of different things that you don't think about and you don't know until it's too late and you're gone. So I would absolutely say start the estate planning as soon as possible. If you've already filed, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not too late. We can't do the full estate planning, but we can set everything up so that your fiduciaries, that's your power of attorney and your advanced healthcare directive agent, are in place. And we can set the structure of your individual plan in place so that as soon as that divorce is finalized, it can be properly funded on your behalf. So the answer to your question is the sooner the better, but it's never too late.
Got it. And I know you had mentioned to me prior that you had worked in a family law attorney's office prior to you becoming a estate planner. So what drove you to kind of merge the two or think about the two and become estate planning?
So I've always been in estate trust and probate. That's why I did the specialization, because I knew that this is what I want to do. But I had previously been in a law firm that specialized in family law, and I was the estate division of that. And in that firm, I learned so many aspects of family law, and there were a number of problems that they would come to our case reports, and I would say, well, why didn't we put this in place prior to the divorce? And it was like light bulbs went off. Like, why didn't we? If we had done so, we would not be in this position that we're in now. For example, I had one client, it's called a gray divorce, when people are getting divorced, in their 80s, 90s, et cetera. And I had one lovely couple that had been together for 70 years. They were 98 and 96 respectively. And unfortunately, the wife was losing her capacity. And I met with them several times, and they were so clearly in love and had been so clearly in love for ages. But her adult children were taking advantage and trying to get their access to the inheritance before she was actually in the ground, doing things such as diverting their mail so that it would go to them in Texas instead of to the clients. And unfortunately, that case did not have a result that I'm happy with, because when they had done their estate planning, they had set it up so that the kids who were actually doing this, what I call elder financial abuse, were the powers of healthcare, and the spouse was the financial power. So we ended up having a long, drawn out, very expensive court battle, which, when all is said and done, was about $200,000 in legal fees, and resulted in this wonderful couple that had been married for 70 years getting divorced, and mom being carted off to Texas to live in an old people home instead of in the home with her husband here in Orange County. I had another case where it was a couple that got married young, and they were middle-aged at this point, and they separated over 10 years ago, but the divorce wasn't finalized because during the marriage, the one spouse had seen great success. And so the divorce was just drawing out. In the meantime, they had reunited with their high school sweetheart and were with them. And the high school sweetheart was with them through cancer, through paralysis, right up until the day that they died. But because they hadn't done the planning in place prior to filing for the divorce, the not quite ex-wife got everything. And the high school sweetheart, who had seen them through cancer, through paralysis, through everything, got nothing.
Oh my gosh.
And then one more example, just to kind of give you the full gamut here. Another couple had been married for over 20 years, put 2 kids through college and whatnot, divorced. And they did redo their estate plans, and the divorce decrees did say your life insurance is yours, my life insurance is mine. But they didn't follow up with an attorney to cross the T's and dot the I's afterwards. And when the one ex-spouse passed away unexpectedly, it turned out the life insurance company had never received it forms. And at that point, they wouldn't accept him anymore. So ex-spouse got all of the life insurance, and the children who had student loans and whatnot got nothing.
Oh my gosh.
So these are all examples that I've dealt with firsthand, where if we had done proper planning in advance, we would not have had these results. And they're all at the intersection of family law and estate law. And most people don't realize that these are overlapping areas, that they're so vital and important to each other.
Well, thank you so much for sharing those examples, because I do think it's so important that if we can give any advice to these women, it's to go and get an estate plan done prior to filing if you're able to. Unfortunately, I was not in my circumstance. I ended up having to go afterwards, but that was actually one of the first things that my lawyer recommended me doing during my divorce, actually, is to get it in place because I have the 4 children, and making sure that they have everything in line. God forbid something were to happen. But I appreciate you sharing all that. How about I know there's several estate planners out there. What is your differentiation strategy in dealing with clients?
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to jump back to that question in just one second, because you mentioned the minor children, and I wanted to mention one more point that's very important. When you're doing the complete estate plan, if you have minor children, we do a package, a protection for minors package. And this is actually really important because if, God forbid, something happens to you, even the divorce has been finalized for 5 years, there's no custody issues, whatnot. But if something happens to you, then by law, the surviving parent gets 100% sole custody. And if they don't have a good relationship with your family, I have seen cases where the surviving parent has cut the children off from the deceased parent's family entirely. If you've done the proper estate plan and incorporated the nominations of guardians for minor children into that plan, then your parents, your siblings have a legal document that they can take to court and get visitation or even custody rights. They can show that it was your intention that your children had a relationship with both sides of the family.
That's so important to know.
Yes. So I thought of that when you were talking about your minor children. I wanted to make sure I said that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important.
So on to what differentiates me. Well, as I mentioned previously, I have all of the degrees and all the certifications. So you're not going to find anyone more highly educated or experienced than I am in this field. But aside from that, everything I do with love. The whole mission and founding principles of AHAVA Law are AHAVA, which is love, and Tzedakah, which is justice. And I believe in efficiently leveraging technology. I believe in a collaborative education approach. So we're going to work together and figure out what it is that you as a client specifically need, because your situation may be similar to others, but it is not the same. And so we're going to figure out what it is you need. We're going to educate you on what your options are and what the potential ramifications of each option is. And then I'm going to empower you to make the decision as to what the right choices are in your situation, because only you will know that. But you need all of the information to be able to do so. And another thing that makes me unique and different than most of my colleagues is my commitment to the community. And so a big founding principle of AHAVA Law is giving back to the community. And I do so by running a pro bono estate clinic at the Veterans Legal Institute. So every month I do estate plans for free for veterans and service members.
That's beautiful.
It's really, really incredible. It was a big reason why I started my own law firm, because when at least half the work you're doing is pro bono, you don't really meet your billable hour requirements if you work for someone else.
Yeah.
But it works for me because it allows me to do what I'm passionate about and help the people that I am passionate about without worrying about, am I meeting my billable hour requirements? Because the bottom line is we need to make sure that everyone is completely taken care of, and not just, band-aiding problems. So for your example, in 2020, we did over 100 estate plans pro bono for veterans and their service members.
Goodness.
So that is what makes me different. And so when I have paying clients, they get to know that the work that we're doing with them is the same work that we're doing with our veterans, but they're also knowing that it's kind of like the buy one, get one with the shoes and whatnot. You buy one shoe and it gets donated one. And it's not exactly the same, but by hiring me to help you, not only do you get my experience, but you also get to know that you're supporting a small woman-owned business who is out there supporting the community.
Well, I appreciate that. Part of the graceful exit is to really vet our professionals and ensure that you align with our mission and values. And just by speaking with you and getting to know you over this past year, your empathy and compassion for those that you serve is far above everyone that I have met in this space. And I just appreciate you for being who you are and authentic to these clients that you serve and just putting your heart into it. And I appreciate that. So the question I'll end with is, why did you decide to become part of the graceful exit? I know there's a lot of differentiation companies out there that are kind of doing the same, but just curious to know why you decided to come on and join us.
So when I was first approached about the graceful exit from another one of your trusted professionals, a family law attorney that I've worked extensively with, she came to me and said, there is this wonderful new company, and I think they fit entirely with what you've been telling me about your method of estate planning. And I really want you to meet them. So I met with the two of you, and realize that our values are completely aligned with the empathy and the compassion, the community connection, the making sure that you're working with people that you trust. I particularly like that when someone is going through a divorce right now, they are in such a state of mental, emotional, physical, financial turmoil that coming to the graceful exit gives them one place where they can get all the information that they need from a trusted and reliable source that is not trying to sell them something.
Yes.
I find a lot of the other marketing opportunities out there, they're all pay to play. And I want to make sure that when we're sending a referral to someone, we're sending someone that we know and that we trust. And we know that they're going to do not only good quality legal work, but they're going to take care of the client from a personal and compassionate level, and not just be, another client number.
Yes. And that's what I appreciate about you is that you really take into consideration every client that you bring in. And it's, to your point, not just a number, but it's truly you work with them from beginning to end and share that empathy and compassion through it all. There's not a whole lot of legal firms that do that. And that was one of my really thought out missions, is to provide these resources that really care about these women going through it. Because to your point, it is probably one of the hardest things that a woman has to go through.
Especially if there are children involved. Like for my example, myself, my parents had an incredibly contentious custody battle that went on for years. And at one point, I actually saw the legal documents, and it was just traumatizing for me as a child to see what my parents were going through in court when I know them on an individual and personal level. And these are incredible, amazing, compassionate people. But when you see the way it plays out in court, it's horrifying.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always end up with the best results for the kids. Like for me, I ended up doing custody literally every other day at a different parent's house, which meant I was carrying a 60-pound backpack with all my books. And so having been through that from the child's perspective, I want to make sure that we make it as easy as possible, because it's not a good time.
I agree. Well, is there any other tangible advice you want to offer this community before we end? I know what my takeaways are. Definitely, if you can, pre-divorce, to go ahead and contact an estate lawyer and to get the planning involved. But any other thoughts of wisdom or advice that you have?
I think that is the biggest takeaway, that yesterday was the best day to plan and today's the next best day to plan.
Yep.
And also the fact that when you're preparing an estate plan with me, you're not just a client for that minute. This is not just a transactional thing. I want you to be a client for life, to come back anytime there's a change of circumstances, anytime you have a question about how the taxes are going to work on this. I really want to be your partner for life.
We appreciate you so much. And thank you for just taking the time out of your day to educate and empower this community.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.